Sir Vauquelin, you've had an exciting life. Tell me some stories.
Bien sûr. Your interest is gratifying and quite understandable.
Where does the name Brabant come from?
That is simple. My compatriots call me that because I am originally from Brabant province. And the name stuck. One day, I shall tell you about my place of birth, but I am sure you would long to hear about the conquest of Arezzo, yes? Or would you rather hear how I saved the King of France from certain death?
Arezzo sounds interesting.
And so it was. That is where I earned my knighthood from the great Enguerrand de Concy himself, the commander of our Naples campaign. Enguerrand arranged his forces for battle, and I was put in charge of one of the cavalry units. Out of nowhere, the enemy appeared on our unprotected flank, and Enguerrand set me to hold them back so our main force could regroup. But I saw a gap in the enemy's main phalanx. I sounded the charge and sped forwards.
Wasn't that rather risky?
Un chevalier français fears nothing.
I reckon King Sigismund would think otherwise after Constantinople.
That was completely different. Alors, I caught them by surprise. I hacked my way to their standard and broke through all the way to the enemy's reserves. My attack sowed confusions in the enemy's ranks that encouraged the overlords who raced to join me, scattering everything in their path. And that is how we won the famous victory at Arezzo. Seeing that the force that was supposed to protect them had been routed. The city then surrendered to us. No doubt you had no inkling at Mareshoff what a knight you had the honor to meet. And of course my feats on the field of battle do not end there.
A bold maneuver.
Quite right. Courage is my middle name. Just as Monsieur Chapon says, Audantes Fortuna Juva. That day I was the bravest of them all and won the day.
So you disobeyed your commander and left your flank exposed? Your attack could have ended in a total fiasco. You were lucky the others came to your assistance and your entire force didn't collapse.
I hear thee speaking, but you are still wet behind the ears. So, I can forgive you. In short, I saw an opportunity and took it. Moments like that can decide entire wars.
What did your commander have to say?
He made me a knight and sent me to the royal court to inform the sovereign of our triumph.
I reckon he wanted to get you out of his hair.
Do not talk nonsense.
What other feats have you performed in battle?
Oh, many, mon ami. For one battle does not make a warrior. It would take a week to recount them all, so I will just tell you about my second greatest feat. On the Italian field, we faced John Hawkwood, a ruthless Englishman and a fearsome warrior. Surrounded, we were at his mercy. Night fell, and we knew he would attack at dawn, and that would be it. But just then, Providence put an idea in my mind.
You went to parley?
Mais non! You cannot reason with les Anglais. And observed, I mounted my horse and set off to find help. And La Dame Chance was exceedingly kind to me that day. As I rode away, by chance, I stepped it off of our horses. Thinking we were trying to break through, les Anglais went to head them off. But while the English were occupied with my city, our units managed to flee. I saved many men from certain death that night, and many lords from the disgrace of capture. Needless to say, I was generously rewarded for my valor.
That is indeed incredible. But you were just trying to flee, weren't you?
I wanted to bring reinforcements, but as I say, I merely follow Providence, and she guides my steps, from triumph to triumph, wherever I go. Stick close to me, Henri, and Providence will favor you too.
How did you save the King of France?
With Providence as my guide, mon ami, I came to the court from the field of battle to bring news of our victory, because, and remember this, the bearer of good news is always rewarded and cherished. But the king was in a bad mood and did not wish to be disturbed. Maybe I thought the news of our victory will dispel his ill humor.
How could you tell him if he didn't want to be disturbed?
Ha! I climbed up to his balcony and into his chambers to surprise him with the joyful tidings. And lo and behold, the king was writhing and gasping on the floor, overcome by one of his fits. Wasting not a moment, I dashed over to him and unblocked his throat, thus saving his life. In return, the king bestowed on me the title of a chanson, or cupbearer, and other generous gifts. And I then spent a while in his service at court. Unfortunately, though, even the king's favor does not last forever, and minor mistakes can come to overshadow good deeds.
What happened at court that led to you being out of favor?
Well, perhaps I shall tell you some other time. Would you not rather hear about the glorious duel between Le Gris and Carouge?
Tell me what happened at court that caused you to lose favor.
Ah, a major setback and a gross injustice, mon ami. It is an unhappy memory, because it was the first time that La Dame Chance abandoned me.
It's nothing to be ashamed of. We can all learn from our failures. And I bet even your failures make for great stories.
Oui, that is certainly true. Very well then. I suffered a combination of misfortunes all at once. But bad luck in business and on a hunt were the worst of all.
You were in business?
Of course. I come from Brabant province, home to the greatest entrepreneur of all. My birthplace gave me an unrivaled nose for coin and the reputation of a financial expert. I was nicknamed the Seer of Louvain, and also the End of Midas. That is, until I persuaded an important nobleman to invest a large sum in maritime trade with Africa. All the ships he bought sank in a tempest. He had to sell off part of his estates to pay off his creditors. Of course, he wrongly blamed me for everything and turned many influential courtiers against me. But my advice was sound. He was simply punished by God for fornicating with every wench from the Pyrenees to Brittany, bragging about it and thus bringing shame on his gentle wife. I told him as much, but some people never admit their mistakes and prefer to blame others.
A sea voyage from France to Africa? You must have known that was a massive risk.
A risk, perhaps. But think of the fortune to be made. A man must think big if he wants to achieve greatness, no?
Big ideas often lead to big trouble. Storms, pirates, sea monsters, uncharted waters. It was a disaster waiting to happen, Baron. You should have tried the Baltic trade route.
You are right. That would have been safer. But that is under Hanseatic control and there is too much competition. Africa, mon ami, that is the land of opportunity. The Arabs sell to the Portuguese via Ceuta and they sell on to us. Just imagine selling further and trading directly with African kings, cutting out all of those middlemen. Remember this, because one day I will be proven right.
What was the hunting incident?
We were out in the royal hunting grounds when I caught sight of a white stag. There had long been rumors about it, so imagine the prestige I would have gained by getting it. I set off after it, pierced its flank with arrows, and unleashed the hounds to finish it off. When I arrived, it turned out that my aunt had not killed a stag but the horse of a lady, a court favorite of the queen's. I fell out of her favor, and all the doors became closed to me.
You were damned unlucky. But that could have happened to anyone, couldn't it?
Quite right. I'm glad you are sensible enough to agree with me. A misfortune like that, which could indeed happen to anyone, would make lesser men roll with laughter. But the other lords were afraid I would outshine them, so they were waiting for a chance to get rid of me. And that chance came along, unfortunately.
Luckery and Cargouche. Sounds like a pair of jesters.
En aucun cas. Jacques le Gris and Jean de Carouge. There's two great knights were in a legal dispute over an estate. But above all, when de Carouge was on a campaign, Le Gris fornicated with his wife. She claimed that he had raped her, while he said he had seduced him. And because everyone swore to their own truth on the Bible, the matter had to be settled by combat. First, they jousted. Then they fought on foot with sword and axe. Le Gris thought victory was in his grasp, but de Carouge suddenly pounced on him, wrested him to the ground, and beat him so terribly that he knocked off his helmet and cuirass. Even so, Le Gris refused to admit his guilt, and de Carouge drove a dagger through his neck. And if you promise not to tell, I will let you into a secret about that dagger.
Tell me the secret. I promise I'll keep it to myself.
Bien. As I say, de Carouge killed Le Gris with a dagger. And I found that dagger in the mud after the duel. A blessed blade, an instrument of divine justice. The dagger that ended the last trial by combat France ever witnessed. An item of great value. So, I had several copies made and sold them to rich French noblemen. That is how I first came into wealth. And I used the coin to buy the horse and armor I needed to set off in pursuit of glory in battle.
Ah, that was a good idea. I'd never have thought of that.
You still have a lot to learn, mon ami. But you're young, you have plenty of time. Just keep your mind and eyes open, like I did. It was one of the greatest things I ever saw, and I have seen a lot. Believe me. Half of France came to watch, including the king himself, who then banned trial by combat in France forever. I later told the story to anyone who was interested. One of my listeners, a certain Froissart, wrote my icon down and became famous. I could have written it myself, of course, but I am happy to help others find success.
Tell me about Brabant province. Is it far from here?
Quite far. From Bohemia, you would go to Bamberg and then follow the river Main until it joins the Rhone. Then you sail down the Rhone until it reaches the sea. And there, between the river and La Flandre, you will find Brabant, with its wealthy cities. Anvers, Bruxelles, Louvain, and many others. But those three cities are the equal of Paris, Rome, or your Prague. Both the Dukes of Burgundy and the Imperial Princes would like to annex our land to theirs, because its flourishing trade has made it rich. But like everywhere else, you can only come into wealth by birth or by enterprise, which is how I did it.
How did you end up here?
Leaving the court with a modest sum, I launched to visit faraway lands. I traveled a lot, spending time in various countries, and having many great adventures. When I learned that l'Empereur Charles, that great friend of France, had built the magnificent city of Prague in Bohème, I had to see it.
So people in foreign countries speak highly of Prague?
Bien sûr! It was abroad that I heard of King Wenceslas' silver city and its reputed vast wealth. I bought the abandoned Miskowitz estates and shares in the cotton-bearing mines. And for a time I settled here to provide for myself and wait for King Wenceslas, whom I wished to serve. But even here fate did not let me be. When Sigismund brought his army to the city, I appointed myself to lead its defense. For how better to make King Wenceslas aware of me than by saving his beloved city? Victory was assured, but the burghers had other ideas. The city was handed over to the enemy, and I with it, stripped of my possessions. I languished in captivity, until fate again stepped in by sending you to Malishov.
Sir Vauquelin, I'm surprised how well you speak our language. Where did you learn it?
Where do you think? Here, of course. Ce n'était même pas difficile. Perhaps I have already mentioned that I am guided by Providence. She endowed me with many talents, mastery of language among them. I can communicate almost everywhere in a word, and learn every new tongue in a trice. I now speak French, German, Italian, Latin, Hungarian, and Czech. Some English, though that is only a necessary evil.
Thanks for sharing your stories with me, Sir Vauquelin. What do you think of our band of outcasts?
Well, I cannot say I expected to end up in this kind of company. I am more used to royal courts or at least wealthy burghers. But a man must accept his destiny as it comes.
What do you think of Zizka?
Le Chevalier Jan? Well, he's not doing badly for a minor nobleman, but I think he will never be accepted among the higher nobles and knights. That takes a lot more. Mark my words. I am a good judge of people.
I can't get Catherine out of my head. I don't understand her. I'm sure you have more experience of love than me. What do you make of her? Why is she with us?
Ah, you're right. I am a connoisseur of love like I am of wine. But for my taste, Mademoiselle Catherine is of somewhat aged vintage. Though, I have to admit she's full-bodied and fragrant.
That's not really what I meant. Why is a woman like her with us?
Là est la question. I had the feeling something terrible happened to her in the past.
So do I. But what?
I have no idea. But she is fond of you, if you ask me. Try asking her, and maybe something will come of it. L'amour.
Oh, come on.
I am a good judge of people, trust me. L'amour.
What do you think of Sir Hynek?
Ah, le diable sec. A capable chevalier. But I do not trust him. There is treachery in his eyes.
You think so?
My instinct rarely lets me down.
How do you get on with Janosch and Adder?
Oh, those two. Once in Kuttenberg, I also had a servant who pretended not to understand me and thought I did not understand him when he spoke German in my presence. But he was wrong. He is no longer my servant.
How do you get on with Sir Hans?
Oh, young Lord Chapon may be inexperienced and hot-headed at times, but he's the one of the few here who knows how to play chess. And I have a great respect for chess players. Needless to say, he has not managed to beat me yet. Godwin and Zizka can also play. And that devil in press clothing beat me. Merde.
Have you met Godwin?
The priest who is very skilled with a sword. Priests should not be such good swordsmen. That is what knights like me are for. In addition, he can play chess just as well as he wields a sword. And in drinking wine, he beats even the best Frenchmen. A man of talents. Or perhaps the devil is behind it.
What do you think of Kubienka?
A good warrior. But he has no morals and no manners, like all mercenaries.
Well, I don't think he cares much about that.
And that is just the problem. How can you trust a man who does not want to be a knight?
About this Tell me, how did the siege of Kuttenberg go?
Ah, mon ami, poorly, poorly, but what could I do? Stand down from leading the defense like a coward? After all, I had to live up to my reputation. And at the time, it did not look hopeless at all. I thought it would be enough to stall Sigismund for a while before the Allied army arrived. And that would not have been so difficult.
Only no army arrived.
Précisément. The hope for a swift end melted away, and the courage of the burghers along with it. I, who fought in 5 countries, was relieved of command, arrested, and handed over to Sigismund.
I heard your attack on the trebuchets was a disaster.
It is true, but that was not my fault. The curtain burghers blamed me to cover up their own failure. Ces connards. I made the correct decision, but I was given bad intelligence. The Kuttenberg spies that I sent out reported that the trebuchets weren't defended, but they were too cowardly to take a good look from up close. This tragedy would never have happened if it were not for their stupidity and lack of heart. But enough of that. There is no point, as you say, in crying over the spilled milk. One must move forward. In the meantime, however, I can pass on some of my experience to you. After all, I am not getting any younger, so it is time to pass my wisdom on to future generations.
I'd like to learn.
Unfortunately, I